I'm Michelle Makori, and we are back with Matthew Piepenburg. Matthew is the commercial director at Matterhorn Asset Management and the author of several books, including Bold Matters, Real Solutions to Surreal Risks. Now, Matthew, before the break, we were discussing the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, which you say has played a role in manipulating and suppressing the price of gold. You're not alone there. Many agree with you, including Russia's finance minister, who says that there needs to be an alternative to the LBMA to counter the LBMA's price manipulation, as he puts it. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the interview, Russia is proposing its own international standard for gold and other precious metals, the Moscow Gold Standard. And Russia is claiming that creating the Moscow Gold Standard is critically important for normalizing functions of the precious metal sector. I'm quoting the finance minister there. And the move, of course, is in response to Russia getting banned by the London Bullion Market Association as part of the sanctions against Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. So if Russia does, in fact, launch this alternative to the LBMA, how significant would it be if they succeed?
Well, it's a fascinating shift. And as we talked about before this interview, one of our colleagues and advisors at Matterhorn, Grant Williams, he came out with this, and we talked about this back in February, March of 2022, that what happened with those sanctions from the West was as big a watershed, not only in the currency markets and in now going from a mono currency or a world reserve currency to a multinational currency system, but also in terms of precious metal pricing and the petrodollar. There's been so many ripple effects of those sanctions, so many failed consequences of a failed policy. Again, not taking pro-Putin stance, but it was an absolutely myopic policy. It'll have a massive effect on the gold price because, again, whatever you think of Putin, whatever you think of a war, none of us are in favor of war, seeing civilians killed because of the ignorance, egotism, or needs of powers. But the simple effect is, Putin may be many things, but he's a chess player and a judo master. He's not stupid. He and Xi and China and Russia have been waiting for years for the pretext to reorganize the chess table here. They've been waiting to diminish Western influence, NATO influence, and the US dollar's influence on the European continent in general and the Eurasian continent in particular. Where gold falls into this play is, in addition to seeing what they think is the bullying of a US world reserve currency, which has exported its inflation all over the third world and in the BRICS and in Pakistan, Lebanon, Argentina, Sri Lanka, all these countries who've been bullied by the US dollar are looking for new partners, and they're looking for a new system. And part of that is looking for a new LBMA or a new gold exchange, because Putin and Xi and others are very much aware, like anyone who trades precious metals honestly knows, that the LBMA market and the COMEX and the OTC market and the forward contracts leverage is an artificial, legalized way of repressing the paper gold price. So it's not normalized pricing of gold. It's not a conspiracy theory. I even knew this before I became a gold bug or gold interested. When I was working in Wall Street, we all knew this. But in terms of the gold exchange and the LBMA, Putin, like many of the things, has known that the West, he's been patiently waiting. Modern monetary theory, the idea that you can solve a debt crisis with more debt and then pay for that with mouse click money, was once a fringe concept in the US or in the West. Now it is mainstream, and it's an absolute insult to the notion of money as a store of value. Now it's just a medium of exchange. Russia and the East are thinking, no, we like things like fertilizer, gold, and hay and hard assets. And they're saying we need to reprice and normalize the pricing of the LBMA market. It's one of the many sins of the West that they want to correct. Now, whether they succeed or not is another question, but it's no coincidence that the Moscow World Standard has popped up in addition to everything else as we de-dollarize, as the petrodollar gets diluted by other exchanges and other trades, that they'll do the same thing with the gold market because it is real, it is a monetary metal. And so the Russian finance minister is now proposing that these Eurasian banks start creating their own standard for gold, that these committees come together and they bring in, whether it's an aggregated or a monetary national unit, they're going to reprice physical gold more fairly. Because Putin knows, like everyone else knows, that the LBMA is an open joke. It's legalized use of leverage to artificially repress the gold price. So again, when you look at 8 LBMA banks effectively having thousands and thousands of levered contracts short when most of the market is going long and the gold price is repressed, that's not fair gold pricing, regardless of whether you're a gold bull or not. And one of the things that the East in general and Putin in particular wants to do is compete on this level too. They've seen the US and the West bully and use the world reserve currency to force other countries like Argentina to have a 70% interest rate to try and pay back their dollar denominated debt. Well, now they want to also be the good guy when it comes to gold pricing and real assets like gold. Be very interesting to see that. If you were to use the Moscow World Standard now and where they're pricing gold in rubles, that would have the dollar equivalent of gold at about 2,500 right now. So they're trying to, again, show that they're going to be a more fair, more equal, more normalized standard, because natural supply and demand has been destroyed by criminal levels of leverage at the COMEX and the OTC markets. And so it's not a surprise at all, in addition to every other ripple effect, from the world reserve currency to the declining influence of the West to the declining power of the US dollar, inevitably, that they want to come up with a new gold exchange. And again, whether it's successful or not is to be determined,
Right.
but it's not a surprise.